My sister-in-law handed my wife $160,000 of our joint savings over 14 months. And my in-laws told me I was the problem for finding out. So I closed every account, called a lawyer, and moved my son to a city where none of them could reach us. I'm a structural inspector for the city of Edmonton. My job is to walk into buildings that look fine from the outside and find exactly where they're about to fail. Hairline fractures in load-bearing walls. Corrosion hidden behind drywall. The kind of damage that doesn't announce itself until the whole thing comes down. I've been doing this for 11 years. I'm good at it. I should have turned that eye on my own house. My wife, I'll call her my wife because that's what she was until the court said otherwise, had been acting strange since the previous January. Nothing dramatic, small things. She'd close her laptop when I walked into the room. She'd take calls in the garage. She started handling all our mail, which she'd never done before. Said she was trying to take more responsibility for the household. I thought it was a phase, maybe a good one. Her younger sister Renata had always been the family project. Brilliant in short bursts, catastrophic in long ones. She'd cycled through 2 failed businesses, a MLM phase that cost her parents somewhere around $30,000, and a long-distance relationship with a guy in Kelowna who turned out to already have a wife. The family never blamed her for any of it. There was always an explanation. The market was bad. The timing was wrong. He manipulated her. My in-laws are good people. I want to be clear about that, because what happened wasn't cruelty. It was something worse. It was a family so used to protecting one person from consequences that they'd built an entire architecture around it. And my wife had lived inside that architecture so long she didn't know what standing outside it felt like. I found out on a Thursday in March. I'd taken a half day because the inspection I had scheduled got pushed. I came home, poured a coffee, sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. Our joint account dashboard was open from the night before. I hadn't logged out. I started to close the tab and then I noticed the balance. $43,000. We'd had $211,000 in that account at the start of the year. I thought it was a display error. A banking glitch. I refreshed, still 43. I pulled up the transaction history. 14 months of e-transfers. Small enough not to trigger automatic flags. Never more than $12,000 in a single month. Always on the same day of the week, Thursday, which is when I worked late. Always to the same recipient, Renata. The total came out to $168,400. I sat there and read through every single entry. I'm a person who reads every single entry. That's what I do for a living. My son Eli was at school. He's 8. He had hockey practice at 5:30 and I was supposed to pick him up. I looked at the clock. 3 hours. I had 3 hours before the world had to look normal again. I didn't call my wife. I didn't call anyone. I opened a new tab and started researching. By the time I picked Eli up from school, I had the name of a family lawyer who specialized in asset recovery in matrimonial cases. By the time he went to sleep that night, I had a consultation booked for Saturday morning. By the time my wife came to bed, I was lying there in the dark with my breathing even, thinking about load-bearing walls. She kissed my temple. Said she was tired. Long day, I asked. The usual, she said. I let her fall asleep first. The lawyer's name was Carol Beaumont. Corner office in a brick building near Jasper Avenue. She had the kind of desk that said she'd seen everything and found none of it surprising. Walk me through it, she said. I did. Pulled out the printed transaction history I'd spent Friday night compiling. 14 months, 47 transfers, the running total. She looked at the papers for a long time. Did you authorize any of these? No, op joint account. She has legal access. I know, that complicates things. She set the papers down. Not impossibly. But we need to understand what the money went to. If it was gifted to family, there's a different framework than if it was hidden for personal use. I don't think Renata bought a house, I said. Carol almost smiled. No. But her expenses are her expenses. Your wife can argue, she was supporting a family member in need. For $168,000. Judges have seen stranger things. She folded her hands. I want you to do something before you confront your wife. I want you to open a personal account today. Move half the remaining balance. Not all of it. Half. That's defensible. That's protecting your share. All of it looks vindictive. I moved $21,500 that afternoon. Documented the transfer. Sent myself a timestamped email with the account details. Then I went home and made dinner. Eli wanted butter chicken from the place on White Ave. So I picked it up on the way. We ate together at the kitchen table. The 3 of us. Him telling us about his science project on tectonic plates. How the ground shifts without warning. How the damage happens slowly, underground, until suddenly it doesn't. My wife laughed at something he said. I watched her face. She had no idea. I waited until Eli was in bed. She was washing dishes when I came downstairs. I sat at the kitchen table and put the printed transaction history in the center of it. She turned around and her eyes went straight to the papers. She knew what they were before she read them. I could tell by the way her hands stilled on the dish towel. Sit down, I said. She sat. I didn't raise my voice. I've learned from years of walking into compromised structures that panic helps nothing. You assess, you document, you determine what's salvageable. How long did you think this would go unnoticed? I asked. She started with Renata's situation. The failed business from 2 years ago had left her with debt she'd been hiding from everyone. Not just anyone, Revenue Canada. She'd owe back taxes, penalties, interest. She was looking at a potential fraud investigation if it came to light. The family didn't know how bad it was, only my wife knew. Renata had come to her because she had nowhere else to go. She came to you, I said. Not to me. You would have said no, yes I know. And instead of talking to me, you moved $168,000 out of our joint account over 14 months. She started crying, real tears. I don't know why I'm still able to clock the difference, but I am. These were real. I was going to tell you, she said. When it was fixed. When Renata was stable, I was going to pay it back. From where? She didn't answer. We were saving for a down payment on the property in Spruce Grove, I said. We've been doing that for 6 years. I know. Ellie's RESP had a target of $40,000 by the time he was 10. We were almost there. I know. You moved his education savings. Not directly from that account. It's all the same pool. I heard my voice stay flat. It's all the same money. She reached across the table. I pulled my hands back. The next morning was Sunday. Eli was still asleep. She came downstairs to find me already up, already dressed. We should call my parents, she said. Talk this through as a family. I should have said no. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe I wanted to see it. Maybe I needed to confirm what I already knew. Her parents lived 20 minutes away in the West End. Same house they've been in for 30 years. Her mother, I'll call her my mother-in-law because she was, opened the door before we knocked. She'd been expecting us. Renata's car was already in the driveway. We sat in the living room. The kind of living room with photos on every surface. My wedding photo was on the mantle. Eli as a baby. Her family's annual Christmas card lineup going back to the 90s. Her father sat in his armchair. The one he always sat in. He had the look of a man who'd been briefed. Renata sat on the couch across from me, eyes red, hands folded in her lap. We want to talk about how to fix this, her mother said. As a family. Okay, I said. Her father cleared his throat. What Renata did was wrong. We're not defending it. But she was in a very bad situation, and she went to your wife because she trusted her. That's what family is. $168,000, I said. We know. Over 14 months. We know. He leaned forward. And we want to help repay it. We're prepared to put our house on the line for a second mortgage. It'll take time, but we want to make this right. I looked at him. He meant it. He's a man who means what he says. That's one of the things I'd always respected about him. That's not the problem, I said. Everyone looked at me. The money is a symptom, I said. The problem is that my wife looked at our account, at savings we built together over 6 years, including money earmarked for our son's education, and she moved it in secret for 14 months and told me nothing. Every week she made a choice, every Thursday, for 14 months. She was protecting her sister. Her mother said. She was protecting her sister from me. Silence. You're the person she should have come to, I said. We're married. This was our money. I deserved to be part of this decision. Instead she made 47 decisions without me. She made a mistake, her father said. A serious one. But you have a son, you have a life here. You can't blow up your family over money. I thought about Eli upstairs in his bed at home right now. Probably starting to wake up, probably about to call out for me. I need some air, I said. I stood up, no explosion, no raised voice. Just stood up, walked to the door and said I'd be in touch. My wife called my name from the hallway. I didn't turn around. I drove to Eli's hockey practice, which I'd already arranged for a teammate's dad to cover. And I sat in the parking lot of the rink and called Carol Beaumont. She answered on the second ring. I need to accelerate the timeline, I said. What happened? Her parents want to do a family meeting. Repay it slowly. Keep things together. What do you want? I thought about the Thursday transfers, the closed laptop, the calls in the garage. I want emergency protection on Eli's RESP. I want the divorce filed by end of week. I want to understand what sole custody looks like, given she systematically deceived me for over a year. Carol was quiet for a moment. Financial deception is relevant to character arguments in custody proceedings. It doesn't automatically grant sole custody. But it's not nothing. Judges want to see stability, consistency, primary caregiver history. I take him to school. I pick him up. I coach his hockey team. All documented, school sign-in sheets. Practice schedules. His pediatrician knows my face. Okay, she said. Come in tomorrow morning. Bring everything. I picked up Eli from the teammate's house at 6. Drove through for burgers, because it was Sunday and that was our Sunday thing. And listened to him explain at length why Wayne Gretzky was obviously the greatest hockey player of all time. And also why the Oilers needed better defense as I agreed with both points. He didn't notice anything different. Bedtime. 2 chapters of his book about a kid who builds robots. Light off. Door cracked. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and mapped out the next 6 months. Carol filed the petition Friday morning. My wife was served at her workplace Tuesday. She called me 7 times that day. I let them go to voicemail. Called back Wednesday evening when Eli was at a birthday party. You didn't have to do it like this, she said. I know, at my office. In front of my colleagues. I know, this is humiliating. I didn't respond. We could have handled this privately. My parents offered. I know what your parents offered. A pause. What do you want from me? Nothing. The process will handle the details. You want to take Eli. I want to make sure Eli has stability. I'm his mother, and I'm his father, and for the last 14 months while you were wiring money out of his education fund, I was the one making his lunches and taking him to practice, and putting him to bed. The record speaks for itself. She started to say something about mediation, about collaborative divorce, about how we could do this without destroying everything. I'm not trying to destroy anything, I said, I'm just not pretending it isn't already destroyed. I hung up. Her family's efforts came in waves. Her mother texted first. Then her father called. Renata sent a message that was so long I scrolled past it without reading. 2 of my wife's friends, women I'd known for 8 years, sent messages that started with, I know this isn't my place but, and then made it very much their place. Her mother's message was the one that landed differently. You are hurting your son by doing this. Whatever she did, Eli needs his mother. He needs his family. You are choosing your pride over your child. I read it twice. Felt the familiar pull of the argument. The way it was designed to make me the problem. Then I thought about Eli. And what he was actually learning from me right now. That I showed up. Every day. That our life was stable. That his dad made his lunch and watched his games and read to him at night. That the floor held. I deleted the message and blocked the number. The HR meeting was easier than I expected. My manager is a practical woman who doesn't ask questions she doesn't need answered. I told her I was going through a significant personal situation and needed flexibility for the next month. She told me to use my banked overtime and keep her posted on project timelines. Done. My parents live in Red Deer, 2 hours south. I drove down on a Saturday with Eli, told him we were visiting Grandma and Grandpa for the weekend. He was fine with this because my mother makes cinnamon buns, and my father has a workshop in the garage, where Eli is allowed to use the jigsaw under supervision. I told them Friday night after Eli was asleep. My mother sat very still while I talked. My father asked 2 questions. When I was done, he said, what do you need? Not what happened. Not whose fault. Not how could she just. What do you need? I might need a home base for a few months, I said, while I figure out the next step. You have one, my mother said. I had already started looking at positions in Calgary. Same employer, different regional office. The transfer would mean a salary adjustment actually upward, because the city of Calgary had been trying to recruit from Edmonton for 2 years. And my credentials were exactly what they needed. Eli's school situation was solvable. He'd just finished 2nd grade. 3rd grade could start anywhere. I didn't tell anyone I was looking. Didn't tell Carol until I had the offer in writing. Relocation with a child during divorce proceedings, she said, requires either spousal consent or court approval. I know. How fast can we get court approval given the circumstances? She was quiet for a moment. The financial deception record helps. The primary caregiver documentation helps. We can argue it's in Eli's best interest based on your employment stability. The other party would need to demonstrate equal or better stability to counter. What's her current financial situation? Her employer is aware of the Revenue Canada situation through the deception. Meaning? Meaning her position may not be stable. File it. The court approved the relocation application in 8 weeks. My wife's lawyer contested but couldn't establish a counter-argument that held. Her own financial instability worked against her. The judge granted primary residence with me. Standard parenting time for her if she remained within reasonable distance, enhanced if she relocated within 50 kilometers of Calgary, within 12 months. She didn't move. We crossed into Calgary on a Saturday in September with Eli navigating from the passenger seat using a paper map he'd drawn himself. Which was not accurate but which he was very committed to. I'd found a rental in a neighborhood with good schools. And a hockey rink, 4 blocks away. He inspected every room with the seriousness of a structural assessor and declared the backyard adequate. Can we get a dog, he asked. Not yet, why not? Give me 6 months. He thought about this. Deal. New job orientation started Monday. The Calgary office was bigger, newer, different culture. More collaborative than I was used to. My new manager asked in the first week if I had questions or concerns. I said I had neither. Just let me see the backlog and I'll tell you what needs to happen. He laughed. Said the last person in my role had needed 2 months to understand the project management system. I had it in 4 days. The first month was the hard kind of busy. New school forms, new pediatrician, new routines. Eli cried once, the second week, said he missed his best friend from Edmonton. I sat on the edge of his bed and didn't try to fix it. Just said missing people was real and we didn't have to pretend otherwise. Will he come visit? Eli asked. We can make that happen. Promise, yeah. Promise. His friend came down in November for a weekend. They played video games for approximately 17 hours and ate an amount of pizza that should not have been physically possible. Eli was fine after that. Carol called with updates every few weeks. I let about half of them go to voicemail, called back on my lunch break. In October, she told me my wife's counsel was pushing for an increase in parenting time, citing emotional harm from the relocation. Counter with the documentation, I said. School attendance, activities, well-being check-ins from his teacher. His teacher knows me by name at this school. She knew me by name at the last one. Already pulling it together. In November, the Revenue Canada situation with Renata became public in the sense that it showed up as a court filing. The amount she owed, with penalties and interest, was just over $200,000. My wife had covered most of the original debt, but Renata had kept accumulating. The filing named my wife as a knowing participant in the concealment. This was not my doing. I want to be clear about that. I hadn't reported anything. The CRA has its own mechanisms, and Renata had apparently been on a watch list for longer than anyone knew. Carol called me the afternoon the filing went public. This changes things significantly, she said. How? Her counsel is withdrawing the parenting time increase request. I suspect they're managing a different fire now. Okay. You don't sound surprised. I'm not, I said. Structures fail along existing fault lines. This was always going to happen. The divorce decree came through in February. Clean break. Primary residence with me. Parenting time for her subject to logistical arrangements. Division of remaining assets split according to the courts. Calculation of equitable distribution. Accounting for the transferred funds. She ended up owing me a structured repayment over 5 years. Secured against her father's offer of the secondary mortgage. Her parents made good on that promise. I'll give them that. I didn't celebrate. Poured a coffee, read the decree twice, emailed Carol to confirm receipt. That was it. Eli turned 9 in March. I'd been assistant coaching his new hockey team since October, and by February the head coach had moved to Airdrie. And I'd taken over the Tuesday and Thursday practices. We weren't the best team in the division, but we were the most organized. Which tends to matter more in the long run. His birthday landed on a Saturday. I spent the Friday night before inflating about 40 balloons in the living room while he was asleep. Which took longer than I expected. And left me slightly lightheaded. He walked downstairs at 7 in the morning, looked around the room and said, with great seriousness, "This is a lot of balloons, Dad." "Yes it is." "Why?" "Because you're 9. He thought about this. Okay. 8 kids came over at noon. Pizza. A cake that his grandmother had driven up from Red Deer. And was frankly better than anything I could have produced. A backyard game. Involving a ball and rules that seemed to evolve continuously. My mother stayed for the party. My father drove back that morning, and returned in the afternoon. A couple of the other hockey parents stayed and chatted by the fence. The kid from next door, who Eli had befriended over the fence in the first week we moved in, showed up without being invited, and was immediately absorbed into the group. I stood by the grill and watched my son run around his backyard in his own neighborhood, with his own friends, and thought about the kitchen table in Edmonton where I'd sat with printed bank statements. Different table now, different kitchen. Same kid. Better. In April, Carol sent a final email. Subject line. File closed. My wife's counsel had confirmed she would not be pursuing further modification. The parenting arrangement stood as ordered. The repayment schedule was in place. Nothing further requires your attention unless circumstances change. It's been a pleasure. Take care of that kid. I replied. Thanks for everything. My phone had been quiet for months. I'd changed my number in December, kept the old one active until January just to monitor, then let the contract lapse. The blocked call count on the old number had reached somewhere past 200 before I stopped checking. Extended family. Friends of my wife. One message from Renata, which I saw the preview of before blocking her. "You ruined my life. I hope you know that." I stared at that one for about 4 seconds. Then I thought about what Renata's choices had actually ruined, and deleted it. My father asked in April how I was doing. Not how the case was. Not how my wife was handling things. Just, "How are you?" "Good," I said. "Actually good. The job?" "Better than Edmonton." "Better scope. I like the team." "Ellie?" He asked me this morning if I thought we could get a dog before Christmas. My father laughed. "What did you say?" I said probably yes. I started dating in the spring, which I want to be honest about because it didn't go smoothly. A woman from a parents' event at Eli's school. Thoughtful, funny, had a daughter in the same grade. We went for coffee twice and dinner once. And on the third date she asked casually how things stood with Eli's mother. I gave her the simplified version. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That sounds like it was really hard." It was. "Are you actually okay? Or are you okay in the way where you've just decided to be okay because the other option isn't useful?" I didn't have an answer for that right away. Which was itself an answer. We didn't go on a 4th date. Not because anything went wrong. Just because the question sat with me for a while, and I needed to sit with it honestly before I brought anyone else into our life. I was okay. I was genuinely okay. But she'd been right that there was a difference between okay because you've processed and okay because you've just kept moving. I'd been doing the second one more than I'd admitted. I started seeing a therapist in May. Wednesday evenings. After Eli's practice.
Practical guy.
Didn't talk much about feelings as abstract concepts. Talked about patterns, decisions, what I wanted the next 10 years to look like. You optimized for exit, he said in the third session. You made every right logistical move. I'm not asking whether that was correct. I'm asking what you felt while you were doing it. Not much, I said. That's worth looking at. It was. By September, I'd been in Calgary a full year. Eli started third grade. Same school, same friends, 1 year older. He'd grown 2 inches. Over the summer. Lost a front tooth in August during a bike incident. That was more dramatic in the retelling than it was in reality. And developed a strong opinion about which brand of hockey tape was superior. That I was not qualified to dispute. My job had gone well enough. That I'd been asked to lead a regional inspection review across 4 municipalities. It meant more travel. A few days a month. Which required some coordination. My mother stepped up without being asked. Eli liked staying with her because of the cinnamon buns and the workshop. The situation worked. I was standing at the kitchen counter one evening in October, making dinner, Eli at the table doing homework, when he looked up and said, out of nowhere, Dad? Yeah? I like it here. I kept stirring. Yeah? Better than before, I think. I looked over at him. He'd gone back to his homework like he hadn't said anything significant. Me too, buddy. I said. He didn't look up. Can we get the dog before Christmas or after? Before? He grinned at his worksheet. The first Saturday of November, I drove to a breeder my mother had vetted, which was its own long story, and came home with a 4-month-old black lab, who Eli named immediately, and without hesitation, Chester. Chester was not an easy puppy. Chester believed that footwear was a personal enemy. Chester had opinions about the back fence that he expressed loudly at 6 in the morning. Chester required a level of routine management that was frankly more complex than some construction projects I'd overseen. Eli was completely devoted to him. That first morning with Chester. Watching Eli run laps around the backyard in his pajamas, the puppy hurtling after him. The two of them equally chaotic and equally joyful. I stood at the back door with my coffee and understood something I'd been working toward for a year without naming it. I hadn't won by punishing anyone. I hadn't made anyone pay. The Revenue Canada situation had its own momentum. The repayment schedule was running. None of it required my involvement or my attention. I'd simply removed myself and Eli from a structure that was compromised and built something new somewhere else. The walls here held. That's what I'd been trying to say every time I said we were fine. Every time I told Carol I had no drama. Every time I watched Eli skate and felt something loosen in my chest. It wasn't absence of pain. It was presence of something solid. Something I'd built myself, from a clean site, with no inherited damage in the foundation. My mother called in December, the week before Christmas, asked what we were doing for the holidays. Coming to you, I said. If that's still okay, when has it not been? She had a point. We drove down the 23rd. Eli slept most of the way with Chester on his lap, which was technically against my rules, and which I chose not to enforce on this particular drive. My mother had the house lit up, the workshop cleared out for parking, the smell of something baking before we'd even opened the door. My father shook my hand at the door, then pulled me into a hug. He's not usually a hugger, I let him. Christmas morning. Eli got skates a size up, and a new jersey and a book about structural engineering for kids that I'd found online, and that he immediately wanted to read with me. Which we did, sitting on the living room floor, while Chester tried to eat the wrapping paper. He pointed at a diagram of a suspension bridge and said, "That's like what you look at, right? Except you look for the bad parts?" Exactly like that. What happens when you find a bad part? You fix it before it fails. He thought about this. What if you can't fix it? Then you stop using the bridge, I said, and you build a better one somewhere else. He nodded like that made sense. It did. They wanted me to absorb it. To sit at a table, surrounded by people who'd made a decision about my life, without consulting me and tell them I understood, that family was complicated, that we'd all move past it together. I said, okay. And then I built a life so thoroughly, so completely, so deliberately separate from all of it, that there was no room left for their version of the story. Eli's happy. Chester's destroying my slippers one at a time, and I've started buying them in bulk. I like my job and I like my city, and I like who I'm becoming in a life I designed myself. That's not a consolation prize. That's the whole thing. If you've been watching until the end, thank you. If any of this felt familiar, you already know what you need to do. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.